The Los Angeles Chargers were one of those teams that was right there. They were on the cusp of making the playoffs. They looked like they were going to make the playoffs until things didn't exactly go according to plans. But this team is on the way. I think that they're truly going to be one of those teams that could shock the NFL moving forward. That's going to be a tough team, and that is way underrated on a lot of people's list. And I think there's a lot of different areas that the team can improve. And more specifically through the draft, I think there are 5 specific draft needs: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Draft needs that the Chargers could use to be able to get better. And I think from top to bottom, this team was a very good team, but there's some specific areas that I think if they can target, especially in the draft, they could really do some damage and surprise a lot of teams and people next year. Chargers draft need number 1 for me, and again, you guys can agree with this. If not, great. If not, or if so, great. If not, whatever. You got the Chargers draft need number 1 at defensive tackle. Now, the reason I put this above things like right tackle and corner is because teams, especially late in the season, were able to run by the Chargers. The Chargers had a tough time stopping the run. Josh Jacobs was the latest example, especially in that week, I think it was 19 matchup or whatever, especially with the 17 games now. Maybe it was week 18, whatever. Point is, teams were able to run by the Chargers, and I think it's tough, but it's the harsh reality of you need to upgrade. Now, again, I have loved Linval Joseph from the moment he has stepped on the field into the NFL. He did a lot of great things for teams like the Vikings, and I got nothing but love and respect for that man. Justin Jones is respectable, so is Andrew Brown and Brandon Fayoko, but overall, somebody needs to step up here, and I think that the Chargers need to upgrade at some point a certain position here, and I'm not exactly sure where that is, but I think that overall there's a lot of different things that you could get some, at least, especially in the draft. I think that if you take a look at some guys like Jordan Davis, who, by the way, is a mammoth of a man, 6'6", 330, can stop the run, obviously, but he's really improved himself as a pass rusher as well. And then you also got guys now... like Perion Winfrey out of Oklahoma. You've also got guys like DeMarvin Leal out of Texas A&M. And you can even look at, as you get later down into the different rounds, you could say guys like Zachary Carter out of Florida as well go down there. So who can also play some defensive end as well. So there's a lot of different positions of need for the Chargers. When I say need, I mean this team is mostly stacked. So if you can get a guy, like Leal or Jordan Davis, now they're probably going to have to trade up for some of those guys. But overall, defensive tackle is their biggest need, especially with guys like Linval who are getting up there in age. So if you want to stop the run, you got to get some big beefy boys in the middle to be able to help make it happen. Chargers draft need number 2, right tackle. Now, I know you have Brian Bulaga there, who was injured last year, and the year before that he was but then the year before that I think he was one of the best right tackles in the NFL with the Packers. So it's like he's getting up there in age. Storm Norton is not a starter in this league. I think he's a valuable backup, but he's not a starter. And I think moving forward, the Chargers need to be alert. They need to know that especially getting a starting right tackle in this league is really important. Now, it's not Justin Herbert's blind side, but I think that moving forward, the Chargers need to know that they have to upgrade this position. Like there are, a lot of good talent. There's a lot of good talent in this draft class. There really is. Guys like Charles Cross, Evan Neal, who played OT for Alabama. Like there is a lot of talent, tackle talent in this draft. And I'm really, guys like Trevor Penning out of Northern Iowa as well. Nicholas Petit Ferrer. I never know how to say half of these guys' names. At Ohio State, Zion Nelson out of Miami. Like there's a lot of talent in this draft that the Chargers could use to upgrade that right tackle spot. And we'll come back to the offensive line because I still think it needs a little bit of depth and work moving forward. But Storm Norton is not a starting right tackle. Brian Bulaga is getting up there in age, and you kind of wonder how much time he does have left, because I think overall the Chargers have to start looking for their future starting right tackle. Chargers drafting number 3 corner. This one I can see why you could probably make the argument for being the number 1 need or at least 2. But I think overall, you got guys like in the secondary, not at corner, like Nasir Adderley, Michael Davis at right corner. Also Charles Harris Jr. there. Asante Samuel had a really respectable year this year. But there's a lot. I think there needs to be at least, if you get guys in the top of the first round or in the second round that drop, I think you need to at least pull a trigger, because as the saying goes, you can never have too many good corners. You just, especially as a passer, get the passer type league. And moving forward, the Chargers need to be able to make sure that they take care of that position, because it could be vitally important, especially down the stretch when you play teams like the Chiefs, especially if you make it potentially to the playoffs. Chargers draft need number 4. This one might shock you. Tight end. I know they have Jared Cook. I was a guy that was a big Jared Cook apologist this last year, but I have to be 100% honest here. This, for me, isn't necessarily because they are by any means a bad. That Jared Cook is by any means a bad tight end. In fact, I think he was a big reason as to why they were able to turn around that passing game, or at least as quickly as they did. And it wasn't like they were bad by any means, but having a good tight end could be very good. No, but I think more specifically a reason that this needs to be addressed is a guy by the name of Jalen Weidermeyer. That's right, tight end out of Texas A&M. If they can somehow get Weidermeyer, I know that's a great last name. If they can get him, he's a top tight end in this draft class for me. If they can get him in the 2nd or 3rd round, steal. We're talking about a guy 6'5", 250. Like, he is going to be a bad man moving forward, a big time target and security blanket for Justin Herbert moving forward. But I think they really have to start taking, if they want to help Justin Herbert out the most, obviously help him get a starting right tackle. The rest of the offensive line, again, we'll get into that in just a second, but it needs work. Starting right tackle. Other than that, if you can get him a star tight end, you've got running backs sealed, you got wide receivers everywhere. Like, this is it. You have to get a tight end, I think, because a Jared Cook is not going to be there forever. And when he is good to go, or when he does retire, or whatever happens, you want to have a guy like Weidermeyer to be able to take over. Chargers drafting number 5, offensive guard. Now, I need to preface this portion of the video. I know we're like, 5-6 minutes into it. I know Matt Filer. It was Corey Lindsey. I always mix those two up. Matt Filer is a very respectable guard. And I think that he's still got a couple more good years left in him, but and you guys also got some really good depth. Now I was kind of puzzled. Like, I didn't see Brendan Jameis touch the field as much as I thought he should have, but it is what it is at this point. Also at right guard you had Ode Abushi. I think that's how you say his name. I hope it is. Who got injured, I believe, through the years, but are through the first couple of weeks of the NFL season. He played respectively. He actually played very well. They also got Michael Schofield III. So it's just, to me, it's kind of wondering, okay, I think if you're in the first part of the first round, if you're in the 2nd round, you need to think about upgrading this guard class, or at least getting some value in the 3rd or 4th rounds to be able to add some depth. Because it's one thing to have an offensive line that has some pieces, but what happens if that piece gets injured? You need to have a backup plan, and you need to be able to think on the fly. And I think for a guy like Justin Herbert, especially for his development, it's integral. It is so important to have an offensive line, or at least that is at least average, and you've got average players behind them to be able to give him some time. Doesn't need to be a lot of time, but if it showed from Justin Herbert's rookie year to this year, it's just a night and day difference. Because if you can get him some quality offensive line, that's one thing, but depth isn't such a big thing in this league. And as a Vikings fan, I can tell you, who I have yet to see a good offensive line in the last decade for the Vikings. I don't know what it looks like, but I know that you got to keep putting draft capital into it, because eventually, you're going to find a guy in the 5th, 6th, 7th round that's at least serviceable, that can be an average starter, if not a really good player. You really never know. So I think moving forward, the Chargers need to put, or be willing to put, draft capital into their offensive line. Tackles, you got Rashawn Slater, you're fine. Matt Filer, like we said, was a very good. Corey Linsley at center, Abushi at right guard as well, and Brian Bulaga. So it's like they've got a very good offensive line on paper, but being able to have a guy in there that can step in without missing a beat is such a big part of the game. And I think that's exactly what the Chargers need to have moving forward, because I think that if you could have that missing piece, that 5th portion piece of that offensive line, I think that's such a big thing. But those are our 5 biggest needs in the draft for the Los Angeles Chargers. Make sure you guys like and subscribe down below. Leave a like and a comment. It helps people find the show. We greatly appreciate all the support that we've gotten and continue to get. You guys are truthfully awesome, and we love every single one of you. Make sure you guys also just remember to shoot us an email at thesportsbp@yahoo.com if you want us to cover anything else. And then also, or you could just put in the comment section down below, and we would love to cover it. But let us know what you guys think about our top 5 draft needs for the Los Angeles Chargers.